any question. Okay, there is a Q&A session, and also there is a panel. I'll be in that panel in the afternoon. So if you have questions, you can also ask me during that panel. Thank you, Mibei.
Thank you so much, Engineer. I think it is very, very important for us to understand, again, I'll keep reinforcing it every time I come here, that the objective of us having gathered here is to transition from academic research theory to practical biogas solutions. And I think Dr. Wavomba here has done justice to that, that Kirdi don't just deal with research that sits on the shelves, but it is translated into commercially viable projects. And that is why we are here to do technology transfer with our German colleagues as well, so that in the process of upscaling or going to larger biogas projects, we have the appropriate technology. So from this point, I will invite Mr. Ngetuny to tell us about now. We have these projects, we have these biogas projects. How do we run them sustainably? Okay. And if you have any question, just note, and then we'll have a Q&A session at the end of it.
Thank you very much. Sorry. Thank you, Bibei, and all participants. Now I come to you with this topic: how can we operate biogas plants, small-scale biogas plants, sustainably? What I am presenting today is we synthesized some of the knowledge and ideas by working with farmers in Morocco for the last, since 2022, so about 3 years, a 3-year project to see how we can ensure that they do biogas sustainably. And the lessons we learned from there is informing my presentation today. This is as my brother Dr. Wavomba said, the Institute of New Energy Systems of the Technische Hochschule Ingolstadt. We do applied research. All our research is tied to a project or a real-life activity in the field. So the lessons we come out of there should be practical and applicable. And then now maybe we do the pilot scale and all this other stuff that Kirdi is doing. So I will go to the introduction of my work. I will not dwell here so much. As it has been said, we have an estimated 1,000 billion cubic meter of sustainable biogas potential globally at the moment, as at 2025, which we only use 28 billion cubic meters. So you can see the biggest fraction is still remaining, of which 80% is in our developing countries. And why is it this way? This biogas potential is contained in both crop residues and animal waste or manure. And if you see our small-scale biogas plants, except the ones that Chege showed us a little bit, the flexi one, they use food waste, they use market waste, but we also have another more available crop residues that we are not using. So the idea of my presentation is to see how we can develop small-scale biogas plants that can co-digest crop residues and livestock manure. I borrowed this one from how they operate the big plants in Germany. From this, or our lessons we learned from the previous project, and we identified at least 4 steps. That first of all, you need to identify and quantify the feedstocks available in a region, or even if it's an individual farmer, which feedstocks do they have? How much is it? What is the seasonalities of this? And that's where you do a prioritization and selection of this, so that you know how can you operate your biogas plant continuously without having less gas or abandoning it completely. So you will find some farmers say they do biogas for cooking, but they still do we have this problem called fuel stacking, isn't it? It's a big problem in renewable energy clean cooking systems, that you still use charcoal on the side, LPG on the side. So it's, how can you do this? Then we go to after you have this, you design your system and provide evidence on how the economics of this biogas system, as Dr. Vomba said. And based on this, we propose how we can modify the existing systems to accommodate these difficult to digest residues. I will go first to the next one, the feedstock. We did not move. Go to slide number 4. You are not seeing the framework I was explaining. So then go to 4. In 4, what you see here is the site where we implemented our project in Morocco. We were doing research and trying to synthesize with farmers. Where are the feedstocks? What are the quantities? And how can we implement biogas plants there sustainably? Because they already had biogas plants before, but most of them are not working anymore because either there was a drought or somebody had 5 cows at the beginning, now they have 1, they cannot sustainably operate this plant. So here we recommend that we do, of course, localized surveys and quantification of which feedstocks are available at that given site, quantify what are the uses, what is the size of the household. These are actually, and what utilization pathways for digestate. These are basic, if you talk to the installers of the biogas plants, these are some of the first questions they ask you. Which feedstock do you have? What do you want to use it for? How much, how many people do you have in your household, to determine what demand you need and the size. Okay? And we saw here that from one farm to another, you have very, very different variations. So either, based on such data, you can either do a centralized biogas plant in a community where everybody contributes their residues, and then you have a bigger one so that it's more sustainable, and share the gas using, we have technologies, I think Mr. Chege said he has some digital pay-as-you-use or prepaid meters that you can share now among yourselves as the community. Okay? Now, coming to Kenya, the current slide you see here, we tried to look at we tried to apply the same concepts, this one using current KNBS statistics. What's the current potential? And here you can see a map. You can see a map there that shows where some of the biggest potential lie. You could not think that you have a lot of potential in Turkana. You have a lot in Garissa. The total potential, according to this crop production and livestock statistics for 2025, is about 5.4 billion. This includes municipal solid wastes, the organics. About Nairobi has about 1 million that's recorded officially, but if you look around, I think it might be more, and enough to power the city. So you can see here we have a significant potential in the regions that usually experience a lot of energy, lack of energies, and with innovations in the systems that we have seen, it's possible to install even a portable biogas plants, even if the community is moving from one place to another. It's possible to do it in these regions. Okay. No, this is we tried to see how can we prioritize the feedstocks. We look at adequacy in terms of the quantities and the digestibility. What is the consistency in the supply, and what effort do you need to turn these residues into digestible matter? And this is, we developed during this. We can use the same matrix for different places depending on the residues you have, or when you are recommending to the farmers or adopters. Of course, after that, identifying the residues, and then you do what is the potential of these residues, and how can you mix them? How do you mix them? Because now we want to do a co-digestion. How do you mix these residues? What modifications do you need in your digester to adopt the new or additional residues based on even seasonality and other circumstances? And as he rightfully said, if you cannot provide evidence that somebody will make some, either save or make some money, it might not be attractive to many people. So you actually using fuel substitution benefits, fertilizer savings, labor reduction, you can actually calculate how long it will take to pay back, what is the rate of return, and what's the net present value. And these are the best metrics you can give to an investor to decide whether they want to do this or not. Okay. And based on our research, this is what one of the approach we could think of, that because livestock manure, go to the next one. Not following me. Now this is the proposed, we try to synthesize. How can we integrate these biogas feedstocks with pre-treatment in terms of crop residues that are difficult to digest? We introduce a pre-treatment of these feedstocks. The advantage of crop residues is that you can store them longer, even when there is they are not very perishable. So once you've known the ratio you need, you can keep them, things like straw, things like silage, you keep this. And we propose this framework where you reuse the liquid digestate to help you in pretreatment, to reduce the cost and ensure you can practically implement this on a small scale system. And of course, the biggest neglected product, that's the fertilizer there, is to return it back to the farm, and you have a complete system. Yeah, that's my presentation. You are welcome for any questions later, and you can discuss more.
Okay, thank you so much, Ngetun, for that presentation. And I hope you took a very keen note to the Kenyan map that we had there. You saw Turkana is very, very dark green with almost our theme colors. So that was basically the potential, the biogas potential of the country, right? And you see these often neglected areas, they have great potential. And again, especially for Nairobi County, they have huge chunks of municipal solid waste. So that is a conversation we'll be having as well with Kirdi here, so that we see how we scale these biogas solutions into commercially viable solutions. Because basically at the moment, we are doing waste collection, but not waste management. Yes. So the next presentation I'm going to call is GIZ. They come from a perspective of development partner. We come and hear how they can support us in this journey. So let me welcome, he'll introduce himself. Yes.
Good afternoon. My name's Michael Okoth. I work for GIZ in a program called African Biodigester Component. What does it mean? It means that we are some few states ahead of what we are talking about today. Because already we are feeling the practical aspect of implementation. We are getting details and working with the stakeholders at the ground level. I like what Tuk University is doing, because for the many years, you realize that in every academic institution, there's always a department which is headed by a DVC called Research and Extension. But many of these theses, where do they end? It's either they're not commercialized, or probably they cannot attract any tangible funding. And I always ask myself, why do you have to continue churning some of these PhD graduates when in real sense, some of these theses cannot be funded? That is a big question. As somebody with a finance background, we always talk about cost-benefit analysis. Because to train a PhD student, or even a master's student, you pump some money. The government invests in that particular student. But if you can't recover it by attracting a funding organization or by attracting a certain fund, then it means that the whole investment becomes zero. The ROI is negative. The IRR also becomes negative. So I like what the direction that Tuk is taking, and I hope that going forward, this is what every public university in Kenya should do. At one point, I've been lucky to interact with some of these lecturers, probably in foreign universities. You know, in foreign universities, before you even think of starting a course, you have to identify who's the potential employer. Yeah? If you're thinking of doing something on biodigester, you must look at who are the possible employers or adopters of that particular technology. But I think in Kenya it's a reverse. But I hope one day we'll get out of that. So GIZ is a German international corporation. The Z is silent. My good friends from Bavaria, they know what Z means. I may not be able to pronounce it. The Z is silent, so it's German International Corporation, which is a development agency being supported by the federal government of Germany, working with different countries, different partner countries, to support in achieving sustainable development. This one cuts across different sectors: the clean energy, the climate mitigation strategies, economic empowerment, and quite many others. So for this case, I'll narrow myself on clean energy, which is the biodigester technology. And as the implementers of this program, we are more focused on two things. There's the bioslurry, and then there's the biogas. Those two should be able now, working backward, you should be able now to build a business case and probably pitch to a potential investor so that you're able to support a sustainable program. Also, it's so much have been spoken about the natural science, the natural research, but you have not heard about the soft aspect of this intervention. For any sustainable development implementation, there are three things we always talk about. We talk about the policy and research, which is very much well represented in this room. We also talk about the technology providers. I've seen a number of companies we work with, the Systema, the FlexiBio, who are more on prefab technology, and then there's also the fixed dome technology. I believe my good friend Collins will be given time, also talk about what kind of challenges they experience, how does the market looks like, and what is it that they feel can be done better, apart from probably what we've not done as a program. And then there's the silent part called capacity building. And capacity building has so many aspects. That's why we'll talk about the access to finance, which had been mentioned by one of the presenters as a challenge in Kenya. There's the aspect of access to maybe market, the BDS support, and such kind of things. But for this case, I'll more talk on behalf of people who are not invited. I've realized that there's no financial institution. And you know, these are very key people when it comes to adoption of this technology. So just to go through what ABC is, the program. It's a program which started in 2022. Bavaria is just 2 years old in the market, so we don't expect much. But for this, I definitely expect many, many things to have been done. So it's running up to 2026, that is this year. It's ending in September. It was co-financed by the Netherlands government, Danida, and the EU through RVO, who is the implementing agency. In Kenya, it's being implemented by a consortium of organizations. ABPL was, I don't think they're represented. Oh, they're here. They're here. Good, nice. So GIZ as the main partner, SNV, I'm not sure if they're there. And ABPL I've already mentioned. So generally, basically, the target was to achieve a sustainable, stable, and growing market for biodigestate that significantly contributes to achieving national energy access and climate targets. This is not a handout, it's a hand up. It's a market-based approach, meaning we can bring in different interventions. We have worked with different financial instruments, but the target is not to distort the market. Because by the end of the day, as a program has a start and an end time. So if you bring in things to do with handouts, it means that at the time you are getting out the market, you will be getting out the technology. So our approach is market-based approach. It's hand up. We only support you. We allow the market to work in its own way. And that is the reason why we work with different contractors. Some of them are represented. We work with the financial institutions. And we also work with the government to ensure that we are able to come up with the right policies to sustain this market going forward, even after the program. So some of the objectives we had initially when the program started, which today we are doing almost 90% achieved. We are looking at 10,000 small size bioregisters and 100 medium scales being installed. My good friends are here. They'll confirm if what I'm saying is true. Currently, we are starting at 9,300 small size bioregisters installed in different parts of the country. For the 100 medium sized, we have done above that. We are now hitting 150. Very interesting. But I'll tell you the reason why we have been able to overachieve when we get now to the granular part of panel discussion. 90% users with the function that they just apply, or maybe you also use the trade by salary. We have been able to support a number of jobs, and the contractors are here to confirm. Even the financial institutions, whom we are working with, the financial instruments called results-based financing. The results-based financing, it also applies to the contractors. So we have been able to create a number of green jobs in that sector. So some of the barriers we identified when we were at the onset of this program was that there was inadequate information to demonstrate a business case. I mentioned about a market-based approach. So the business case has to be supported. But then that information to support any potential investor to get into this sector was not there. There was also inadequate market intelligence on potential customers. Most of these contractors you have worked with, they'll tell you they had the technology, they had the knowledge, but they didn't even know how to market themselves. They didn't even know where to get some of these potential clients. But today, where we are, I'm happy that the same way I was invited to this forum, the same way they were invited. So it means that today, them and GIZ, when it comes to the biogas sector, we are operating at the same level. Whoever is able to support them can also support us at the same time, which is a plus to us. There was also inadequate awareness creation and consumer education to stimulate demand. The demand is there. The interesting thing about this sector is that there are people who are looking for this technology. And probably they even have the ability, they have the money. But then there's a technology owner who is also sitting somewhere and looking for these people, but they can't get them. So as GIZ, we created a platform where now awareness creation could be created so that the contractors are able to be engaged continuously. They know where to get them, and even those clients are able to come and look for them through that particular platform. Then there was an inadequate technical CEO capacity. We have done a number of trainings for our contractors. We have worked with the NITA. There's a curriculum which was developed. It's yet to be gazetted, but I'm happy that the university was also talking about coming up with a curriculum. So that's something probably we can do an introduction and we can take it from what NITA was able to do. Though NITA is more on certification, but I think being that universities are on academia, they can use those platforms probably to come up with something better. Then the greatest challenge was about the upfront cost, the upfront investment, the initial capital investment, and then most financial institutions were not even aware about this technology. And one thing about financiers, they don't finance what they don't know. Today, if you walk to any financial institutions, because probably they don't know where Tuk University is, even if you were to introduce yourself that you're working with Tuk University, the first thing a credit officer will look at you and say that these are a potential defaulter. So that is exactly what is happening in this particular sector. A financier, most of them didn't know what about registered technology is. They have never seen one. They couldn't believe that the organic waste could be turned into a biogas, which is a cost-saving item. And probably the same thing could also be used as a bioslurry to substitute the organic. Is it the chemical fertilizers, which are quite expensive in Kenya. So to date, we have been able to train quite a number of them, and I think the market is becoming easier and easier going forward. Next slide. Yeah, so I'd mentioned that since the financial institutions were not invited in this meeting, probably I just mentioned a few things about them, the challenges that have gone. So one thing we have come to realize that capacity building is very key. When we started working with the financial institutions, because that was the main bottleneck. We already had the technology providers who are well-trained. Some are big companies like the Sistema, there's Home Biogas, the Flexi Bios. These are guys, if you were to even look at their books of accounts, they're doing all the returns, the system are perfect, but they were not able to access these financial institutions. At one point, I'm sure, some of them were even running a department, a credit department. And the question was, the main objective of this company is not to sell money. So they ended up, if they're buying this money from a commercial bank at maybe 10%, then they have to charge another 20%, which is quite high for this particular market. So capacity building is key. The de-risking tools also encourage lending. On this, we had a revolving fund. We had a result-based financing, and we're also engaging other partners who are also able to step in with a guarantee model just to de-risk and ensure that the perceived risks are mitigated. Then binding finance with technology and after-sales service is quite key. It had been mentioned by one of the contractors. If the technology doesn't work, I can tell you for free, that the next bank will not finance it. Because the moment the technology doesn't work, the client will not pay the installments, and it stops at that point. So putting the two at the same level, that a contractor, after we've done the construction, and since this installation was supported by a financial institution, you must support the after-sale services to ensure that the customer can constantly and continuously enjoy those benefits. Then it becomes very easy for them to service that particular facility. Client awareness and financial literacy are also very critical. And then biogas in Kenya, we are just moving from the pioneering phase to the expansion phase. We are yet to get to maturity and saturation, which are many countries in EU already there. So we are still more on domestic biodigesters. And you know, our tradition is very interesting that in most of these homesteads, it's women who take care of the kitchen. They take care of the cooking. So it's also important to think about gender-sensitive products and approaches, which can now, the moment a woman buys this idea, then the idea is as good as taken care of by the whole community. And partnership and market positioning, it means that you cannot work in isolation. It's always good to put all the three arms together, the policymakers, the research institutions, the financial institutions, the capacity building, and the technology providers on the same platform. That one means that even when it comes to adoption, it becomes a very easy thing. Yeah, I think that's the end of my presentation for now. That is the website. In case of any question, maybe we'll discuss at the panel, but I can still respond to any of them now.
We'll have a Q&A immediately after our next presenter. So as you've heard from our development partner as well, GIZ, he has mentioned about small-scale biodigesters that is very prevalent at the moment. And I've said, and I said, every time I come here, I'll keep reminding, we want to shift the conversation from small-scale biodigester systems into large-scale commercially viable biogas projects. Right? So we've started from Flexi Biogas, for those who came just recently. We started with Flexi Biogas and Strathmore Energy Research Center, telling us about building context of the Kenyan biogas system at the moment. And then we transitioned to Kirdi, where we talked about not just research that talks to that's essential, but we transitioned into applied research where we produce industrial scale, you know, maybe pilot scale. And then now we transitioned to Ngetunyi, where he mentioned about the sustainability of the small-scale biogas system. And then now from our development partners, he has reinforced the need of capacity building, and that is why we are here. The next speaker that we have, we are now shifting a little bit to the policy and regulatory framework. Because I'm sure, as we'll get to know later, from our German, and even I'm sure he understands, for the biogas sector to work efficiently, we need a sound policy and regulatory framework. So as we try to build capacity as well, we want to drive that conversation. Yes. So I want to welcome our colleagues from Energy and Petroleum and Regulatory Authority. Yes. And don't be, Najwa, 14th was recent, where they reviewed the petrol. So welcome, and you will introduce your colleague as well. Yes.
Thank you very much, moderator. You know, it's very interesting because Energy and Petroleum Regulatory Authority is mainly known for petroleum prices. You know, every 14th of every month, all eyes in Kenya are what is EPRA saying this month. We do more than that. It's not just petroleum prices. In fact, when you talk about petroleum, you also speak about the safety of that petroleum products. It's a day to make sure you get the products that are quality, to the standard, and it's safe. Safety is really, really important. We don't want to be selling, marketers selling petroleum to people who don't live. So it's really important. But apart from that, as I said, EPRA is big. We also have two other, apart from petroleum, there's two other directorates, electricity and renewable energy directorate, where I and two of my colleagues here, you can raise your hand, where we three of us work. And then there's also the economic regulation directorate. So it's economic regulation actually do work with the other technical directorates. So what's the mandate of EPRA? EPRA's mandate is technical and economic regulation of energy and petroleum in the country. So we are the sole regulator for all these products. So anyway, today we are not talking about petroleum, so don't ask me a question about petroleum. And if you ask me, I'll tell you, wait for 14th. Today we talk about biofuels. And biogas is one of the biofuels. And as a regulator, we have come up with a regulation to govern the biofuel sector. Sometime back last year, I know most of you know about Cocoa Network. The Cocoa Network used to sell bioethanol for cooking. And the government has made it a target to have clean cooking, universal clean cooking by 2030. The reason is most of us, especially for us who grew up in the rural areas, we grew up with our mothers cooking with biomass. Now we are in a modern world. We need to move our people from biomass, that's what they call solid biomass, to clean cooking. And biogas and in general biofuels is one of them. So last year, the president said we should come up with a regulation, and he was very specific on bioethanol. But as a regulator, we saw it fit that let's look at it in a holistic manner. And we did a regulation focusing on biofuels. And when you say biofuels, for us, we define biofuels to mean biogas, bioethanol, biodiesel. So I'll present what is contained in that regulation here. But it's more of biofuels, but we also talk about biogas. So what's the background? And I've said, as a country, we depend a lot on fossil fuel. Two things about fossil fuel: environmental effects on where we live, and also foreign exchange. We have to get dollars from all of you and then put it or send it to Middle East for us to get fossil fuel. So it's really something that, as a government, we are looking forward to move away from. Then government has really prioritized biofuels. I've said, the president himself pronounced himself that we should come up with a regulatory framework that will govern that area. And then what about biofuels in general? Biogas is one of them. Give us an opportunity for energy security. So if we really depend on petroleum products, we will not have some protests that we had last month, because we will have our own energy security. And then, and my colleague from GIZ they have done a lot of good work for rural development. Today, my mother actually cooks with biogas, and I'm a really happy person because my mother is in several women groups in rural areas. And whenever they come to visit her and she's cooking tea with the biogas, and one thing about, if this is feedback from the users, it cooks very fast. So other women will ask her, what is this are you using? And with that, we are using her to promote biogas facilities. I come from Kiambu, where we do dairy farming. So other farmers now will see that this is something coming from your normal activities of dairy farming. So it helps a lot in rural development. And of course, climate action, we have talked about environmental factors. So next, please. why do biofuels matter in Kenya? We have said about the energy security, economic growth. Now our mothers don't really need to walk long distance to look for biomass for cooking. They will engage in other activities that are very important. Agricultural value add. We can talk about dairy farming and biogas. Of course, a matter of benefits, and it's one of the way of just transition. Gender equity in case, especially for us in Africa. And I keep saying, for us in Africa, our main transition is in clean cooking. If you're able to transit in clean cooking, we have done it. Next, please. So government in general has done quite a lot. Us as a regulator borrowed because policy is usually done by the government, and from the policy itself, we as the regulator come in to develop the regulations. For example, the pronouncement of the president is a policy directive that we have to do some of the regulation. And government has done quite a number of policies, starting with the national energy policy. This was approved by the cabinet last year. Currently, as we speak, it's sitting in the parliament to make it a session of paper. And also the Energy Act. Our mandate as EPRA comes from the Energy Act. So those are two main documents that govern the whole energy environment. And then Minister has developed the bioenergy strategy 2020, and with that we have bioenergy strategy action plan. So what exactly they are going to do, and one of them is the regulation. And then there's energy efficiency and conservation strategy. By the information, when you do biogas plant in your area, in your home, you're also part of energy efficiency and conservation. Because now you're not using other fuels that are emitting and they are not really efficient. We have a biogas system that's more efficient. And then Kenya National Cooking Transition Strategy, as I said, our main transition will be clean cooking transition. And then the final one is what I will speak now on energy biofuels regulations that were enacted last year by the minister. So what is the process, John is Siniana, what is the process of developing the regulations? Sometime back in 2022, as April, we thought and we felt the market is not really big enough or has not really developed enough to have a biogas or biofuel regulation. So we developed the guidelines, but there's one thing about the guidelines. The guidelines, they're not really, how do I put it? You don't enforce the guidelines themselves. You just guide the market where it should go. That's what we call them guidelines. They're not enforceable by law at any particular time. You're not supposed, even if you don't do anything that is mandated in that guidelines, nothing will happen to you. But the regulation is totally different. So in 2022, we developed the guidelines, and then 24 October, we developed the first draft of these regulations, of biofuel regulations. But by law, whenever you develop a regulation, you're supposed to undertake a study we call regulatory impact study. What the impact of that regulation to the general populace, economically, environmentally, and socially. So we also did a study last year, January to June, where we engaged different stakeholders to understand what we think about these regulations. And then we internally did the review from the impact assessment that we have done. And then we have done the review internally. We go back to the public and ask the public, what do you think? And this, for the regulatory impact assessment, we mainly have a consultant. We want to have a third party so that the stakeholders don't feel like they're speaking to EPRA. They open up and say, this is what we think. But public participation, it's us now telling you, we have drafted this regulation, what's your views? So we had the two public participation between May and July. And then I think in June, the EPRA board approved and submitted this to the Cabinet Secretary. It's the work of Cabinet Secretary, as per Energy Act, the work of Cabinet Secretary to enact any regulation. And these regulations were gazetted in December last year by the minister. Can move to the next one, please. So I have said we did consult quite a number of people. We consulted sugar factories, especially for bioethanol. We consulted government agencies. We consulted development partners. By the information, GZ really supported us in this process. So they are part of people we really consulted. Of course, we cannot really do without meeting the associations. So we, Kerea, Kin Cooking Association of Kenya, ISAC, and others that are involved in the process of biogas and all the biofuels. Of course, training and research institutions, quite a number of universities. I'm not so sure whether we come to talk Dr. Bilha. I'll need to check now the full, but also consulted KIRIDI, especially because this is a technology that we want to develop locally. So we also consulted all these people. Next, please. So what is the structure of this? The regulations are divided into various sections from A to H, wherever the preliminaries, what are the permits that are required, the licenses that are required, the general provisions, the reporting that is required of it, and then where we're coming on inspection, local content, complaints and disputes that may come from it, and then what are the transition clauses that are to it, and schedule. Schedules is where we put some of the forms that are required for application, the format of the license, and all that. Next, please. So what are the general provisions of these regulations? As I said, for us as a regulator, we say biofuels refer to bioethanol, biodiesel, or biogas that are produced biologically and or chemical conversion of organic matter for industrial process, heating, application, cooking, transport, and electricity generation. We are aware biogas you can do a lot with it. You know, you can use it directly for heating. You can use it in an engine for electric generation. So all that is what we are covering in this regulation. And these regulations apply to production, importation, exportation, transportation, storage, packaging. So it's the whole value chain from production all the way to sale. And these regulations are developed are based on Energy Act. For information, we cannot develop any regulations if it's not based on an anchor, a law. In this case, we actually point out the sections that we anchor these regulations on. So those are pictorial demonstration of what we mean by biogas and bioethanol and biodiesel. Next. So if you want to construct a biofuel facility, you need to get a permit from us. But we are saying for biogas facilities with the production capacity of less than 30 cubic meter, they are exempted from getting a permit. And this is really focused to, maybe I was biased because I was looking at my mom. My mom biogas plant is very small, it's 10 cubic meter. But it is not me. It's actually the stakeholder said, for those small systems, which we are trying to promote, then we don't really need all of them to line up at EPRA for a permit. They're quite small. It's expensive even for them. It's also expensive for authority because you need to have officers sitting there all the time. And there are quite a number of them that are being done. So those are being exempted from getting a construction permit. And this application, when we receive them, we take a maximum of 45 days. We usually have PC targets. So one of the targets that we usually have is to do this with less and less days. Yeah, we have a law saying 45 days, but we try to do it in less than 2 days. And then you have 2 years to do your construction. So this is basically more focused on commercial biogas plants. Next, please. So these are the requirements for a construction permit. If you want to construct a biogas plant, the company registration documents, proof of occupancy of office. Of course, as I said, we're expecting it's a big one, so we need physical planning approval from the county. Of course, NEMA license in case of any environmental effect that can come from it. Of course, a study, a feasibility study, specification, layout of the plans, engineering drawings, and of course, certificates for those who have done the designs, so that we bring professionalism in the work that we do. Next, please. So now, from a permit, the permit is just once, for construction. So when you're done your construction, then you need a license. So we are saying we don't engage in all this work from production all the way to sale of biogas without getting a license from that. But at the same time, if your biogas plant is less than 30 cubic meter, then you are not required to get a license. You can just operate the way you operate. But there's an exemption. If it's still below that cubic meter and you're selling that to your neighbor, then you will need to come in. The reason being, whenever there's a sale of a product, there's a likelihood of dispute. So who do you go to if there's a dispute between the two of you? And that's why as a regulator you come in. You come for us to try to solve the dispute. If you are not able to solve the dispute, or you are not happy with the resolution of the dispute, you are allowed to go to the Energy Tribunal to resolve that dispute. If you're not happy with the outcome of the Energy Tribunal, you can move now to the High Court to have it done. Not the High Court, the Court of Law, to have it get a resolution. Maybe you feel it is happy. So that's why you're saying whenever there's a sale, then we have to come in. Those are the categories of the license that we give. Category D for biodiesel, category E for bioethanol, and category G for biogas. Of course, you can see the relationship, diesel, ethanol, and the gas. So that's how we have classified them. And the processing of the application is less than 30 days. You try to make it less than 30 days. Of course, the law says 30 days, within 30 days. Next, please. What are the general provisions for the biofuels? This is more of bioethanol. For those who are interested in bioethanol, we gave a mandate for blending of bioethanol using Kenyan standards, but this mandate doesn't start now. It starts in the next 5 years. Mainly because we are also looking at the market, and we also want to facilitate the market to grow. So we are giving it time to grow. When you look at the production of bioethanol, for example, biodiesel in Kenya currently is quite low to really support the blending. Currently, we import approximately 400 million liters of PMS in a year. So even if we say 5% of that, it's really a lot that we really need as a country to produce. Currently, most of the production of bioethanol is from sugar processing. We know the seasonality of sugar processing. So those are some of the things that we're looking at. But also, ministry is really advocating to move to other crops, like cassava, for example, that can be utilized for bioethanol. Next. So other provisions is about now maintaining a register. So you can go to our website and see who has been licensed to produce and sell and transport biofuels. Of course, if you get a license from us, you have to submit the data, and then we are given the powers also to inspect the facilities, and especially because we also want to make sure our clients get standard facilities, and those complaints are quite little. Of course, there's also the issue of local contents, and complaints and disputes are always referred to the authority, and then we can move them all the way to the courts. And the appeals also to the Energy Tribunal, I've talked about that. And of course, the transition clauses, moving from guidelines to the regulations. Next, please. So, what are the application? I also thought it's also good to put it here to show what are the costs that people will incur to get our permits and also to get our licenses. It's not really high. The only difference that you see is on bioethanol. For those who want to import bioethanol, we are charging about 100,000 Kenya shillings to import. Of course, it not be a small fish if you're going to import bioethanol. It must be a big fish, and you're able to to pay that amount. But the other is quite little to really facilitate you to get the licenses and be within the regulatory framework that we have put in place. Next. I think this is not really important. It's mainly for biodiesel. We're saying we want to start blending by maybe next year as a pilot. I think I'll stop there. Next one is on question and answer. If you go to the next, I'm available for any questions that we can be able to discuss. Thank you very much. Are you taking questions now? Because they already a question.
Thank you so much. We have a comprehensive Q&A. The media, can we have the mics go around? As we do that, we'll take the questions from, just have a few minutes as we wait to go for lunch. We'll just have a Q&A. So let the mics go out so that we can have a Q&A. Yes. Yeah, we'll only do for 15 minutes, and then we go to lunches exactly at 1. Yeah. So at the back there, we have, can we have another colleague who is, no, take pictures. For somebody else can assist us with, Collins, Engineer Best, sit down. Well, let me have a student from TUK. Ah, you are there, okay. So we'll start with Collins Obora. Just stand up. No, I'm not even supposed to introduce you. Just stand up, introduce yourself, and then ask your question. Yeah.
Yes.
The other mic?
Oh. Okay. Yes, my name is Collins Obora. I'm a local contractor for Biogas systems. I have questions and maybe clarification from EPRA.
EPRA. Let me have an extra mic. Yes, EPRA.
So in terms of the requirements for the construction permits for biogas systems, currently the rules are that according to the new Gazette notice is that the biogas should be above 30 cubic to get the permits, which is okay. But now, when you go to the requirements, I think the sector was not consulted enough, and anyone who has been in the sector for a few days can know that in the requirements, first is the company registration, which is okay. Satisfied work permit, which is okay for foreigners. Proof of company office, which is okay. For the proof of ownership, we have sector, us in the sector, for during Mike Okoth's presentation, you saw Bionet. Bionet is the Association of Biogas Contractors and Stakeholders, which I'm the treasurer. So I also have some little authority to speak on the sector. When you say that you need engineering drawings for biogas, to get the permit, satisfied engineering drawings. For those who've been in the sector, you know that most biogas systems are done by already designed drawings from maybe patented companies. Like if you are doing the Ken-Beam design, they were already designed, and to ease the sector, they are distributed to the contractors. So I don't know, we didn't understand what that meant. We also felt that you are asking too much for an EIA for 32 cubic meters. I'm reading the requirements.
I think, Collins, because of time,
Yes.
I would like just speed up the question.
Yes.
I'm sure he's aware of the requirements. Just go directly to the question. So that we can
a feasibility study for 32 cubic meters. So we have those concerns, and maybe EPRA to advise, because this is like taking us back, and will limit limit constructions. Thank you.
Okay, so I think you can answer. Okay, let me just be clear. Any other question going to EPRA so that we can, when he answers, he can address all the questions and go directly to the question. Eh? Yes.
Okay, thank you. My name is Peter from JK Watt. I know you were consulted as JK Watt by EPRA when they were developing the regulations. That is good. But now it comes to the adoption of the technology. You are saying that by 2030 the government want to move to clean cooking. That's good, but now we had cocoa. It collapsed. It closed down due to the government regulations, where they had subsidized their biofuel so that it could be used by the low-income homesteads or households. But now they were getting their money or the revenue from the carbon credits, the revenue they were going to get from the carbon credits. Why did the government not sit down with the cocoa company so that you can see the way forward, so that you can share the benefits from the carbon credits instead of not authorizing them or giving them the necessary letters for them now to sell the credits so that they can get back or offset the finances? Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Let's be brief and concise like that. You have a question for EPRA as well? EPRA, okay. Because of time, let me just have...
Yeah, so my
I
name
think
is...
I'll limit the questions for EPRA to that. Yeah. The good thing is EPRA will still be part of the panel discussions. So maybe even some of these will come up through the panel, and then, yeah, so...
So mine is just to check. We, in the prefab sector, are these requirements flexible? For example, we don't do any permanent infrastructure and these sort of things. So we don't really need, in the markets where we are in, we don't own any of the lands where we are working. So is this based on constructed type only or biogas digesters?
Okay, thank you. Now we can have EPRA proceed to answer. Maybe you can summarize your feedback.
Thank you very much. I think these are quite good questions, and I really appreciate the feedback. On patent and drawings, feasibility study, let me start with the EIA. You see, any project that's being done, you are required to do an EIA. Some of us really don't do it, but you know by law you are supposed to do an environmental impact assessment of any project you are undertaking. So it's not EPRA actually mandating you. We also, because you see, whenever we do the laws, we also look at other laws that govern such a project. And in this case, MCA actually mandates any project you are being undertaken. Meaning, even how small it is, you are supposed to do EIA. So I think I'll take it as like a feedback, and we see how, especially for small scale biogas plants, we see how we can, find it a way that is easy for everyone. But I'm also wondering, and I'll ask this question, maybe you can discuss later. 32 cubic meter is not really a domestic biogas plant. So it is mostly for commercial use. So that's how we look at it. Anything about 32 cubic meter is needed for commercial use. So we thought it's also important to make sure it's done in the right way. And that's about the drawings, especially with sort of canning. For patent drawings, maybe we can have no engineer check on them, have them stand for our review. But we don't require them. And that's also a problem for patent drawing and the requirement to have an engineer look at them. Peter, on cocoa, That's a great one. But if you are living the government, carbon credits, it's something to be shared. So what will public is for almost everyone. It's an environmental benefit. But I don't want to go deep into it because I don't have much information why or coffee. But the point is, carbon credit regulations are governed by the Ministry of Environment. Now, all that came to call the Ministry of Environment. You are different because, and I here was energy twice. And as a country, as a Minister of Energy and April, we thought that we are lost. So now cocoa was really to transition to blue coffee. No, we are not done because we are challenge. Another prefab is you know, you're frustrating yourself and saying, the other designer, but there is no design. I'm wondering what is that. But the point is, you just need to document the design. Yeah, just to document that. And whenever you, for example, when you build a prefab in a farm, the owner of the farm maybe is the owner of that facility, and the one who will really apply. You are coming in what we call engineering, procuring and construction. This case. So we're trying to find a way of accommodating everyone. I used to say, as a regulator, our work is to facilitate business. So even when we come to a forum and you ask questions, I find it take that as feedback. I know to improve on whatever we are doing. So even for your kids, then when you get there, then be able to see what is the best way and we'll assist you. To make sure you get the right sense in the pants. Thank you.
Yes. Thank you so much, Epra, for that. I think, as we said, it's very energetic conversation, especially it was just 14th, a few days ago. And that is why we are having this conversation as well, so that as we don't have our own fossil fuels, Strait of Hormuz, ikifungwa tena, we'll have a problem. That is why we need to transition into biofuels. And I like he transitioned the conversation a little bit beyond the biogas. But of course, they are cousins and sisters. The industry
went one of this. Bioethanol, biogas, but now we are here on biogas.
So we'll transition that conversation further on how we can now turn the biogas into, like for example, you know, I think Tobias will talk about that, where we can talk of application in the industrial scale, yeah? So that if you are here and you are using fuel from EPRA, which is expensive, we can come and install biogas for you. So a question, yeah, we have a question here. Let me just have...
Thank you, moderator and participants. I'm Engineer Fantas Gitonga from Nairobi City County, and I direct my question to the first presenter, Flex Biogas. And mine is a concern, because you are saying that we are getting from theory to practical. I'm wondering, because most of the productions are household based. Now, at your level, have you, and any other high level producer who is here, have you ever thought of bulk production and maybe, for example, use the tankers like we use the LPG to do the distribution of the earth gas? Where, for example, I'm in a place where there's no potential, but I can still benefit from the biogas. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I like that to be precise and direct to the point. So is there any other question to the industry rep? Yes, we have Engineer Jora there. Just go.
My name is Dr. Jora. Part of the team of chemical engineering systems. My question is directed to Flexigas. From the video that you showcased, we saw that you're taking organic waste from home markets. And I believe there is a local government in Biovarya. So my question is, how did you collaborate with the local government to be able do you overcome the cartels that are within the markets who are always looking for those organic waste? And the second question is more or less similar to the director, but from your facility, you're only producing biogas and you're taking the slurry as a fertilizer. How is the local community benefiting from the biomethane that you're producing in the facility that you're producing the biomethane? Thank you so much. Is there any other question to the industry? We have...
Yes, introduce Wamaida. Introduce yourself.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
My name is
Wamaida. I want to raise one question to Biogas International, then on to KP. So maybe Biogas International and PIZ, we have banks such as ABSA and KCB that talk about refinancing. And I'm curious whether those are institutions that maybe have partnered or would partner, and then what does that green financing mean? One of the things that was raised is that no one wants to take a loan for biogas, but what's the, what's that interest rates for those green finance options? And then for KP, you talked about how the research is mostly for technology that's going to be implemented. And I wonder then, do you have ways that you incorporate, you're criticizing academic, but are there options or partnerships that you have with academic institutions that then the industry problem that is brought to you, you can have our students, for example, coming in and sort of being part of developing that solution? Are there such collaborations that exist? Thank you.
So I think we start with Flexi, be very fast. Yes, so the first question about
bottling of gas. So we've been there, done that. We come to our office in Karen. We do have the facility. But biogas, unlike LPG, is not easy to compress into cylinders. It requires very expensive equipment, first thing. It requires very high technical expertise. So from the time we did it, we worked out that by the time we make it profitable, for it to make business sense for us, would have to sell it more expensive than LPG, which doesn't make any sense. No one will buy it. So what we are doing, we are, instead of going the compressing way,
we are looking at where the charcoal being exposed, for example. We are taking the digesters to the people or to the point of use, because it's very easy to transport waste, whether in truckloads or hotels, it's very easy to transport waste to the biogas digesters. And then at the point of digesters, we are doing mini grids and low pressure. Like this is what we do. We have a big digester, pipe to different points of use, and then we take the waste to the biodigester. It's possible to do compressing, it's being done, but even at our scale, we've not found economic sense to do it yet. As much as we have the compressors, we have the cylinders, we have put that on hold. But it can be done, but we just have not found profitability in doing it at the moment. So, Dr. asked about bioslurry when we're not in Nairobi, because we're not in Nairobi. She also mentioned, in fact, she mentioned something about cartels. Unfortunately, that's one reason we're not in Nairobi, sadly. Because waste is a big business to some people, and when you start managing the waste at source, you are cutting off a lot of people's income. Diesel bills, tires, labor, and all that. So we invited, we met the governor, we met Syria when he was in around times, but then just haven't really headed in Nairobi in terms of waste management. How do we get these markets? We've partnered with houses. Like we work on co-counties, but what we do, we sign MOUs to them, and we come to them with a proposal of waste for space. So we manage their waste, provided they can give us space where the waste is generated. Like in Go, we set up the Go market, inside the market. So we don't have, because the cost in waste is actually in transport. So we set up the digesters in the market, so we don't have any movement bills. But there is no monetary interaction between us. They're not paying us for the waste management, But whatever we do with the byproducts we generate from the waste management is really none of the business. We are selling the gas. We set up a community chain where people come and cook. Now we have prepaid gas meter, just your token meter, where you put 100 bob, 20 bob, you key your token, you use the gas, and then the transfer cuts off. So that's how we are able to recoup our investment, is by doing something with the gas, selling the part of the lab, of course, to the farmers. That's how we are trying to recoup our investment. And we are doing this in 4 counties, Kajiado, Nyandarua, Kisumu, and Nyeri. So I think that was the last one. Yeah, there was fun. So we tried. We worked with the site with the KCB Bank, but unfortunately we only were able to sell a few systems. I'm not sure exactly what wasn't happening, but there was a green fund, and the green fund was supposed to mitigate the interest issue, whereby we were trying to look at people getting biogas loan facility at all zero interest. And the way we were doing that was we were pricing the registers in such a way that the interest that a farmer would have paid is actually captured in the pricing, so that the farmer, when the farmer takes a loan facility, say for 100,000, he would only pay exactly that amount of money. So, but unfortunately, that is not working for students.
Presentation, I think, to GIZ. I'm sure there was a question for you. Yes.
Good. The question was about partnering with APSA and KCB, and maybe something on cost of capital.
So for APSA, we have not been able to have an MOU. We have not been able to get them to other stakeholders. But for KCB, there is a green finance portfolio. Green finance basically means those facilities which are positive environmental impact. These are facilities which works towards ensuring there is minimal emission of CO2. So when it comes to cost of capital, it is something which is very interesting, because one thing we know about our country is that the banking sector is liberalized. And a number of times, like today, the central bank lending rate is starting at 11%. So if the banking sector was being controlled, like in the countries, Ethiopia, Rwanda, and part of Tanzania, the government would have decided that we are only putting a markup of maybe 5%. So every consumer loan begins at 16%. But you know, this is a bucket of it's a money society. So some will decide to charge what they want. But I think with the current changes in our monetary policies, monetary policies about the money supply and the cost of money. Probably we are getting to a point where we will be able to have a controlled environment. I remember when I was a young boy, there were days when these commercial banks used to hold loans. The reason why they were doing so is because there was no control over the national government. So it means that the money supply was higher than the demand. And that is why the Southern Congress and that open roads. So hopefully we are getting to a point where the APSAs will start looking for these grants to support. But so far we're working very closely with the bank, cooperative bank, a number of microfinance institutions. And the easiest entry point to this sector, everybody is looking for affordable financing to the circles. That one is given.
Because the risk is quite low.
We'll have a detailed discussion.
I think part of the panel discussion, I'll limit him to there. And I think I'll, there is Kirdi, yes.
Sorry if my presentation... Sorry if my presentation came out as if I was criticizing academia. I was not criticizing academia. CRID is a research institute, so the
co-mandate of QZ is carried out by researchers. And researchers are highly trained people, both academically and
profession. I'm a doctor, and there are so many doctors skilled. And the second part, if we allow students at QED to be part of the solution, I will ask practical examples. Ibei is currently doing something at QED, aiming to find a solution for the same thing. And I also have two more students here who are still currently. So that's the So yes, we allow students to come to QED and carry on activities. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much for that. I think at that point we will proceed for our lunch, and then if additional questions, we can have them during our panel discussions as well. So we are going to proceed this way. Let me just ask, is there somebody from CNRS? CNRS? Okay. There are two people from KPS. Let me just I've noted one. The Correctional Facilities, Kenya Prison Service. And your colleague, yes. And is there one from Defense Headquarters? I think we were expecting one. Oh, okay. We will have our session in the afternoon. And the reason as to why I asked, we are going to proceed for our meals here at the senior staff mess. Our ushers will direct us. And I will want the people I've called out to proceed fast. And then so that by the time we come back, they'll be already ready to proceed. So we'll start exactly at 2. So we are going to have our lunch for 50 minutes, network, and then we come back. Okay. So because Tobias, you'll be fast, I want German colleagues, the KPS, KDF, we start. But before that, I will invite Dr. Chira to pray for our meal as we proceed. Yes.
Let's pray. Our God and our Father, we thank you for the far we've come, and we thank you even as we proceed to take our lunch. We pray that you will sanctify it, that it shall be of benefit to our bodies, even as we continue in the session of the afternoon. And we pray this in Jesus' name. Amen.
Thank you. Let's proceed to our lunch. Yes. Pardon? Yeah, let's proceed to our lunch because of time. Yeah. Pardon? Yeah, you leave your items, you'll be able to find it. So let's proceed to the senior staff. We have ushers here. Yes. You can just leave your stuff. Yes.